P2T Canine, and welcome back to another Dog Talk. I know that it's been a hot minute since I've posted. Like many of you, I had family over for the holidays, so I took off November and December. I wanted to get the first one for 2025 posted earlier in January, but I've also hit the ground running for 2025 and been busy as well, but all of those are good things. So here we are, first Dog Talk of 2025. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back. I appreciate the support. So let's get right down to it. You've probably already looked at the title and thought, what does bite suits, Cameron Ford, and odor imprintation have in common? That's a great question, and that's why I posted the title the way that I did. I wanted to throw some concepts out there because what this Dog Talk is going to cover, at first they may seem unrelated, but I have real questions and I have some things that I want to put forth to all of you out there to consider. So let's rewind just a little bit. We will go back to the second week of November. I went down to DeSoto County, Mississippi, and participated in the ALICHA, I don't want to mess it up, the American Law Enforcement Canine Handlers Association, put on by the DeSoto County Sheriff's Department and Lieutenant Paul Leslie. Great event, great guy, great department. I strongly suggest that you check them out. They will have another seminar down there in DeSoto County next year, right below Memphis. Beautiful little town, very scenic. Herndon, Mississippi. I believe that's right, Hernando, my bad. But that being said, great little town, some nice restaurants, couple of nice little out-of-the-way bars. It's a great time. You should definitely check out that seminar next year. With that being said, I participated in that seminar, had a lot of familiar faces that I've trained with before from all over the place. Kansas, Iowa, Texas, Oklahoma, and a couple of returning participants that I've trained with before, and some accounts that interact with me on Instagram and elsewhere. And the question was raised about my use of the bite suit. And that's fine. I am completely comfortable and willing to talk about it. And I want to set this up properly because the more questions that I took on it, the more things that came to my mind for the totality of the discussion. Hat tip to Washington Gun Law, another YouTube channel. I want to quote Brother Bill and say, I'm not telling you how to think. I'm trying to give you all the things to think about. And so let's start with the title, and then I will go right into all of the suppositions that I want to put out there for consideration, and then show you how all of those kind of weave together, and let's get it laid out there and give it some consideration. So with that being said, let's start with Cameron Ford. I went to the AT-K9 seminar two seminars ago and sat in Cameron Ford's class, and he brought up the point where, and I've mentioned this in other videos, so this isn't the first time that I'm floating this out here, but it's going to be in a different context. Cameron Ford wants to put out the distinction in the canine realm and in the training of working dogs that odor and scent are two different categories. And after hearing his breakdown on it and his explanation, I agree. And I definitely believe that this is the way to view these things. And then when we start talking about training methodology and best practices, I really think this starts to take on a life of its own. So Cameron Ford, he puts out there that odor emanates from inanimate, lifeless objects. So we have bomb odor, C4 odor. We have cell phone detection dogs, electronic device detection dogs, all of these things we are going to classify as an odor because they are emanating from non-organic, not alive sources, things that did not have life at any point in time. Then he says scent is that which emanates from living organisms, things that were organic in nature. So even human remains detector dogs, certainly search and rescue, doing part of your tracking, and I've considered this before in a prior video, how tracking is kind of a blend of scent and odor objects because we have clothing fiber and material, and then also the skin rafts and the hair follicles, but I don't want to run too far afield into that. But that's where I want to start this, and of course placing it in the title. This is something that I really want to consider in this discussion. We have the odor and we have the scent. So that's the first thing that I've put out there. Now here are the highlights across the board that I want to hit on this. So some people, not all, there are handlers and teams that have trained with me a lot over the years, and before I get too far down that rabbit hole, I have been a law enforcement officer. I have combat deployments with working dogs to both the Iraq and the Afghanistan theaters in the global war on terror, and 11 years combined experience as a SOF MPC trainer for 7th and 5th Special Forces groups. So with that being said, the time at 5th group is mostly a non-GWAT period. Not a whole lot going on as far as the real world missions, but that period with 7th Special Forces Group, absolutely, completely, fully engaged in the GWAT at all times. Lots of deployments, plenty of evidence of bites, real world bites, first outing bites, plenty of apprehensions. So my resume and the documentation thereof is absolutely available, and it's pretty broad. So there is no dispute that I have trained dogs from acquisition from the vendor, even being freshly imported from Europe, to going through basic and advanced training, and then being deployed to a theater of war and performing very, very well. So I have a proven track record of that. If you want to meet up sometime and ask to see some pictures and videos, I can absolutely hook you up with that. With that being said, people do question my use of the bite suit and my very dedicated use to the bite suit, or use of the bite suit, and that's a fair question. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different ways that people do things, and this has been a system that I've developed and engaged with over the years. And one of the people who were at the seminar, a really good guy, not trying to sharpshoot, he's just asking questions, and he keeps saying, well, you use the bite suit a lot, you use the bite suit a lot. Yes, I absolutely do. And then he further asks about, do you think that you are imprinting the dog on the bite suit? So that's going to be one of the first topics that we address. Do you think you're creating an equipment dependency with the bite suit? And do you think that more emphasis on muzzle work and other methods of patrol and apprehension training could be better? So all of those are fair questions, and I began to have the discussion with him. And this guy, as well as many others, by the way, who asked me this question, don't have one moment of self-awareness to ask me the question about me imprinting a dog on a suit and getting them suit dependent as they carry a jute toy or a tug toy made of suit material in their back pocket or in their armpit, and think nothing about whipping that out as a reward for their dog and having them bite this tug toy that's made out of jute material and playing tug with the handler and having this tug of war prey prey-based reward system with their dog. And when I mentioned it to this guy in particular, he was pretty shocked. He even admitted, it never even occurred to me the parallels of what I'm doing, the significance that could have. And let me back up just a step. Not ever in 26 years have I ever played tug with a juke toy with my dog that I am training or handling or using. I will play some tug games with a Kong on a rope or a Kong ball on a rope a little bit. I never ever use juke-based toys and engage in tug of war with my dog as a trainer or a handler. I absolutely do not do it. And we'll get into that as we go along, but I want to develop all of the points of consideration before we get too far into it. So with that being said, this guy was shocked at the idea. And I went on to further point out that some of the people who are critical of me and my use of the suit have absolutely no problem doing some bite work on a table where they are using a sleeve, on a back tie where they are using a leg only sleeve and all of their other clothing is completely exposed. And some of the people who are critical, asking the question, am I making a dog dependent on equipment and am I imprinting them on a suit, have absolutely no self-awareness when they are using a leg sleeve or a sleeve when they have a dog on a bite table, or if they have a sleeve on, a barrel sleeve, which again is something that I never use. Once a dog gets through a basic course, I don't even much care for them in a basic level course. After this dog leaves a basic course, they are never going to see a barrel sleeve from me ever again. There is no reason for that. Go back and look at some of my other videos, but once we start moving that dog into the realm of real world engagements, I need a dog that views every part of the body as a viable target. I need protection on every part of my body, and that goes into my decoying style, and we'll discuss that as I give you things to think about with my use of the suit. But the sleeves are out before or no later than the basic course, and they will never come back again. But some people who question me and are critical of my style of training, all of a sudden you'll see them put a dog on a table and grab a sleeve or a bite pillow and start sticking it in this dog's mouth. And these are some people who have no self-awareness and then turn around and say, well, you being so dedicated to the suit, you're creating an equipment dependent dog. So that's something else that I wanted to point out. So we've hit the bite suit. We've talked about how Cameron Ford and his training methodology, his outlook plugs into this. And then we have odor imprintation. So when we're talking about odor imprintation, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And for some strange reason, there are even new handlers and some old handlers who still want to hang on to this antiquated and completely ridiculous notion of loading odor into PVC pipes with holes drilled in it and hucking a PVC pipe out into a field and having the dog retrieve it as a method of odor imprintation. But that's out there. There's also the scent wall, the behavioral shaping devices. There's the protocol boxes. There, Randy Hare, when the hair boxes caught fire for a while, and Randy Hare was the hottest name in canine for a year or two. I've trained in person with Randy Hare on several occasions and had good discussions with him and used his hair boxes at some of his training venues. So all of this is out there. And now here's another concept that I want to bring in that matches up with the title. Whenever we are putting odor on a dog, there is the one criticism that I have heard, which is, for instance, with the protocol box, well, you're just teaching a dog to find a toy. Well, yes and no. You are making your target odor synonymous with the toy so that they have a reason, a payoff, something in mind, so that when they find that odor, then what they're really looking for is the toy, because the odor makes the toy come out. And there is some fair concern and criticism about making sure that your toy is separated from your target odor when you're imprinting a detection dog, and that's fair. And again, with 26 years and multiple programs and using dogs in real world engagements and making IED finds in Iraq and Afghanistan and weapons caches and bomb making material finds, it's a fair question. But then I also have the actual real world firsthand and experience as a unit trainer to show that yes, it does work and we can overcome that. But the one piece that I have never heard anyone discuss as a concern when you're using protocol boxes, I've never heard anyone say you're teaching the dog to imprint or detect wood because your box is made of wood. Even proponents of PVC throws have never said, oh, there's a real concern that your dog's going to imprint on PVC as well, and then you have to proof your dog off PVC later. No one during the Randy Hairbox craze ever said, oh my gosh, this dog is going to be imprinted on the plexiglass that's in the front of the box. Do you start to see where I'm going with this? So somehow in the minds of a lot of working dog handlers and trainers out there, again, we're taking the same dog when we're talking about a dual purpose or multi-purpose canine that does both detection of some sort and then patrol techniques, that teaching a dog to find bomb odor and teaching a dog to find man odor are two completely separate and unrelated tasks, and there aren't any corollaries or connecting threads between those. Why not? In my view, yes, there absolutely is. If you go back and look at my two videos, the basics of detection and also aid placement and what it means to your dog, I draw no difference between how the dog sees the world when you are looking for a man and when you are looking for a bomb. So with that being said, no one has ever come to me and said, oh my gosh, this dog is going to be a wood detector because he's finding bomb odor inside of this wooden protocol box when we start imprinting the odor. And I find that odd because now when you look at doing patrol and apprehension, when you have a decoy, me, anyone else, a living, breathing human who is a heat source, who is putting off heat and scent 24 hours a day, 7 days per week, and then you put them inside of an inanimate object, suddenly in the patrol venue, people start to look at the wrapper you're in with great concern about, oh my goodness, you are in an inanimate object, in this case a bite suit, and the dog is imprinting on the suit and not the person. So that's what I want you to consider. So that's why I've titled this video the way that I did. We've got a bite suit. We have Cameron Ford, who talks about the difference between inanimate, non-organic odor and organic-based, live-based scents. And then we have the imprintation system of putting dogs on target odors for the purpose of detection, whether that be narcotics, whether that be bombs or electronics or anything else that people are imprinting dogs on. Now I want to bring all of this discussion together because dogs, you cannot convince me that dogs view finding bomb odor and learning to find the odor of a person in a patrol exercise as two completely different and unrelated things in their mind. And if you do try to tell me that, I'm instantly going to go back and start providing proof to you through the methodology and the steps that we provide to get the dogs to do each of these things. So as far as the odor imprintation goes, a quick piece of substantiating evidence here. When we started soft MPC all the way back first class January of 2007, and then I wound up in Afghanistan with 7th Special Forces Group with the first dogs fielded in combat for MPC in early spring of 2007. We had trained on odor imprintation, obviously with all of our dogs on ANFO, ammonium nitrate and fuel oil, which is really just diesel and ammonium nitrate based fertilizer. When we got there, the first dogs that we fielded, we had hits on some of these jingle trucks that the Afghanis were driving, and good solid hits. I witnessed several of the first ones, and these were absolutely no bullshit, change of behavior, brackets going under the frame rails of the truck and coming up on the other side. They were on the downwind, moving upwind. Everything was there for a righteous alert to odor. When we get to the other side of the truck, the dog's kind of looking up, and we're taking it very seriously, as everyone should, trying to play it by the book. And as we go along, I just keep noticing, which is very often the case in Afghanistan, that the saddle tank on this truck does not have a cap on it. It has a rag shoved in it, and there's some damp, obvious signs of fuel sloshing out of the tank, and it's wet on the outside of the tank, and there's some dust sticking to it, and the rag is wet and it's dripping a little bit. And I'm thinking to myself, are we just hitting on these trucks because ANFO is partially diesel and we have diesel present? And most of these trucks, in fact, all of the trucks that we had alerts on that didn't have anything else present in the truck that the dog should be imprinted on, sensitive to, or alert to, all had rags for gas caps. And at that point, I thought, okay, going into the next cycle of refit, retrain, and deploy again, I am going to cut ANFO from our target odors. We're still going to do ammonium nitrate, and ammonium nitrate was still very much present, that and urea in Afghanistan and Iraq as well, but more so in Afghanistan because of the fertilizer component to the agriculture of Afghanistan. And so with that being said, we couldn't drop it completely, but I wanted to cut the ANFO component out of it. And the way that I was going to go about this was in the next training cycle with our veteran dogs, ANFO would go away. It would be only ammonium nitrate and urea presented to them. And then in the next group of dogs coming from basic to advanced course and then training up to deploy, we would cut that out completely. Long story short, probably too late for that. Going into all of the follow-on years after 2007, we did not have that same recurring problem of hitting on jingle trucks and throwing everyone into a tailspin just because it had a rag shoved into the gas tank for a cap, and that fuel was sloshing everywhere and was really readily available on the truck. So also we went back and we proofed ourselves, occasionally throw out one actual ANFO training aid, and dogs hit on it no problem, even without the diesel present. So that brings us back to another point for consideration, and this is going to be pertinent to anyone who's ever been a student of mine or trained with me, and everyone who came from the Von Lick Kennel lineage, and that includes Cameron Ford, that includes Jeff Franklin and Steve Stoops and a shitload of other people who try to pretend that, I never learned anything at Von Lick or from Ken Licklider. Horseshit. Ken really kind of was the leading edge for a long time on odor imprintation, and a component of that is the stew theory about dogs finding individual odors, even though they're all present together, that they can identify each one of those on an individual basis. The stew theory is people smell a pot of stew with all the ingredients present, which blend into just one kind of giant scent picture, just one amalgam of everything that's in there. And that dogs, when they are in the presence of the stew, they can smell each ingredient individually. And I do believe that that bears out in real world terms, because bombs have multiple components. There's an infinite way to construct bombs, and the bombs or recipes of bombs are unlimited. But yet we have a very, very high level of effectiveness in real world terms when we're talking about bomb dogs. And what about the dopers? I started out as a drug detection handler, dual purpose drug detection handler in my law enforcement career. What about the people who are holding drugs of multiple types on them, or multiple drugs in the vehicle? Because dogs can't speak and we can't debrief them, but in real world terms, these things do bear out. We find these bombs. I can have brand new dogs imprinted only on ammonium nitrate or urea, and then I can go present ammonium nitrate fuel oil, and the dogs will find it even though it has the diesel mixed with it. You can take det cord and peel it apart and put just PETN residue into a cloth baggie and put that out, and the dogs will hit on it. There's 10 different ways to illustrate that the stew theory is real. And now I go back to the point of, why are we in the mind that when the dog is learning imprintation for target odors and imprintation for apprehension purposes, why these are completely separate, disconnected things in the view of the dog? I don't believe they are disconnected in the view of the dog. This is another example of where the anthropomorphic handler and trainer come into play, and they want to project what they think the world looks like to the dog. For years and years and years and years, going back to my police career, people who do single odor imprintation method, and especially those who were doing the pipe throws, they say, I'm starting on marijuana first because it's the strongest odor. According to whom? According to the human involved in the equation. Why on earth do we assume that marijuana is the most pungent and the most prevalent odor to a dog? Because the dog can't tell us, but because we have some marijuana and some meth and some cocaine, and people telling me, well, meth is the most difficult and my dog struggles with it because it's basically odorless. According to whom? According to the person who said it. A dog whistle is not readily available in the range of hearing to a human, and yet dogs hear them just fine. So why do we have this acknowledgement when it comes to hearing that the dog has a range available to them that we don't have, and that they pick up on something that we don't? And yet over here on the odor imprintation side, everyone automatically assumes, well, because marijuana is really pungent and it sticks out to me very, very strongly, then, and I don't really smell anything on meth, must be we start dogs on marijuana because it's the strongest odor. According to you. No one can ask the dog, in the same way that the dog whistle is available to their ear, is the methamphetamine just as strong or stronger to them as the marijuana, just in a different range that's not readily available to us. So with that being said, there is another instance of where people are inserting themselves and their worldview onto that of the dog. So with that being said, why are we presenting a human in an inanimate object, the bite suit, and automatically assuming that the thing that the dog is targeting the most is the suit? In my case, I'm 6'6", 220 to 25-ish pounds, depending on how much running and bicycling I'm doing in my normal routines and CrossFit, but somewhere around that. And I'm a living, breathing heat source, wearing about, I usually wear sport and comp suits and things that are thinner and lighter and more agile. I don't do the big giant Ray Allen Michelin Man suits for a multitude of reasons. Not flexible, not agile, not fast, too bulky. Everybody, less seasoned decoys and rookie handlers like them because they don't feel anything. I want a tight, thin, form-fitting suit where when the dog gets on there, it's smaller and closer to being analogous with the size of a person's limb. And I want them to fill their mouth with my limb, not being able to roll off a big mouthful of jute material and just be hanging on to a giant bunch of jute. Again, I'm developing this dog for real world apprehensions, and I don't want them looking for that clothing or the exterior garments to roll off and hang on to a garment. I want them to get a full purchase, go get a good confident mouthful and have a limb in there to hold on to that person until we can come in and close this deal out. So with that being said, I will say let's call my suit 25 pounds, 30 pounds. So something that's not even a quarter of my body weight that is an inanimate object is present. So something a fourth or less of what I weigh that is inanimate, and me sweating my ass off in this thing, just pumping scent everywhere. And people want to assert that what the dog is picking up on is the wrapper, the inanimate object that emits odor. And I do fully stipulate that this has odor because it's inanimate, but it also becomes completely saturated with my scent because I am sweating gallons upon gallons. And you may think that that's hyperbole. If you've been to the Dothan, Alabama seminar, if you've been to the Mississippi, and I do 5-6 hours straight in a suit in a scenario, catching dog after dog after dog, rewrite back to back, and I am not stripping off equipment after this, and I am drinking fluids and staying in this suit for a 5-6 hour day, yes, this thing is absolutely saturated in my juices. And that sounds gross, and it kind of is. But with that being said, why on earth is the mindset and the assumption automatically that the dog is picking up on the suit and not on the person that's inside of it, when we look over to the odor imprintation side of the house, no one thinks of it in the same terms. No one says, oh, we can't put it in a box that the dog's going to learn wood. We can't put it in a pipe and throw it because the dog's going to learn PVC. We can't put it inside of a hair box because now the dog is going to learn the plexiglass window in the front of this thing. So that is to highlight the absolute absurdity of these things. And then the people who say, well, you're in the suit, you're teaching the dog equipment, who then will turn around and use a tug toy or a jute reward to pay their dog for doing obedience, for doing odor detection. Will have tug fights with their dogs and do a little bit of simulated prey and or combat with their dogs doing the jute toys. People who will put their dog on a table and present a pillow or a barrel sleeve. Guys who will put their dog on a back tie and stick a leg sleeve on and try to do leg targeting, which is the most absurd thing that I have seen. If you want to teach a dog to target, I did an exercise last summer with Jason Stanzi, my buddy from Houston Canine Academy. Find a building. If you have this burning desire that I want my dog to target something in particular, you don't need to take a seasoned dog or a dog that's already out of a basic course and put them on a back tie and stand up out there and put this dog on a particular limb. Go to a training location, find a way to limit the dog's options in a real world setting where this is the only thing available, and you can work that dog on this body part in particular in a more real world setting to show them this is what's available. This is where you can get a grip on this bad guy. This is where you can secure that prey and hold it. So in the instance of us doing leg bites last summer, we found a building and it had some of the old-timey half doors. Boom, move some furniture, get behind this half door, shut the top, limit the access to the legs, put even one leg inside of we had the little metal trash cans. It was kind of an office setting where we could limit it down to one leg or have the one leg just above the trash can up available to the high thigh. It's only limited by your imagination, the ways that you can present yourself in a real world setting to limit the dog's options and to force their hand to take a grip that might not be their first choice if they have the whole decoy available. So with that being said, when we're talking about imprinting on dogs, and I wanted to bring up another point, and that's why I led off with where I was at in November down in DeSoto, Mississippi at the Alicia seminar, is the fact that part of the information that I'm giving to you, this is not just my hypothesis. I have spent thousands of hours inside of a bite suit doing advanced courses, doing seminars, and the difference being my test bed has been dogs that I have selected from a vendor, done their advanced and sustainment training for them, done any troubleshooting training, and then when I go to these seminars, I have another group of dogs, another demographic that I've never touched or seen before, and I get to go into an environment, into a training venue, and set it up and present myself to these dogs with them having never seen me before. So I am not only basing all of my information on dogs that I have selected and cultivated myself, but dogs that I have never touched or seen before, and I get to interact with them in this training environment. And I have thousands and thousands of hours and tens or hundreds of thousands of engagements with these dogs in these settings to base my information on and to develop my system against. So again, referring to DeSoto, Mississippi, I want to say there were 30 something dog teams there, and the vast majority of them, I'm trying to remember, I think there were only 2 or 3, maybe no more than 5 that were detection only, single purpose dogs that did not do apprehension. So I had another 25 or 30 dogs as a test bed, and the majority of those dogs there were dogs that I'd never seen before. Some of them I had interacted with earlier in the year in February of 24 at the Dothan, Alabama seminar. But again, what I'm telling you is I'm sitting in there, and let's provide further context to November to Mississippi. I'm inside this training venue in very difficult lighting conditions. We had lights pointing at the entrance to the room that I was in. There was music blaring, so I had visual cover with the lighting. I had noise cover for any movements that I made. I was in a room on pretty lush carpet, pretty padded, so I could move around without making any noise whatsoever. And I'm trying to challenge the tactics of the handler as well as providing training to and being there for the dog as a tactical tool when the handler is trying to defeat this scenario. So with that being said, I'm using the light to my advantage. It's temporarily blinding the dog and the handler. I'm watching these dogs come in on me on scent only, and I know that they can't see me, and I can back up and try to move deeper into the shadow, and these dogs are just slapping their teeth together like a bear trap in the dark. And because I've been in there for hours, my eyes are adjusted. I can see with a little bit of the strobes and other ambient lighting that's covering the entrance. I've got the dogs and the handlers are backlit, so I can see their silhouettes and how they're moving way more than they can see me. So with that being said, I'm able to move, and I'm watching dogs turn corners and wrap this low wall that I was behind. It was a planter inside the building around a handrail to a ramp, and then a set of stairs. So I'm between the stairs and the ramp, and there's a curving planter on the inside of this building, and I'm moving along, backing up, trying to give ground and suck this handler into a dire tactical situation. And these dogs are on me, and they are just reaching out, snapping in the dark. I'm not presenting visually the picture of a bite suit as if I were out on a grass field where the dog can see me fully. I'm sweating myself to death. The dogs are working the odor, or scent rather, because I am, again, I'm making the distinction because I think it's a correct distinction as per Cameron Ford sees things. So they're coming in on my scent. They're following this planter where there's this breadcrumb trail of scent moving towards the main draft, the large door that they're coming in. And it was absolutely beautiful. And seeing these dogs react the same, knowing good and well, and they can't see me, and to have that dog reach out in the dark once I hit my absolute limit of advance where I can't go any further, or I'm going to expose myself to the handler fully, and I'm trying to suck them into to a tactical faux pas. To have these dogs just launch in the dark, I was grabbed at the ankle, at the absolute cuff of the suit at the leg. I was grabbed at the absolute cuff at the wrist. I was grabbed at the collar, right at the collarbone on me. But all of these engagements are in the dark, and that dog is not targeting a body part. They can't see a preferred body part. They are coming in strictly on scent. They know that I'm there, and they are trying to grab something. The more that you can obscure your view, and I was also wearing some loose garments over my suit, as I am very much a fan of doing, just to break up the outline of the suit. And I'm wearing clothing material over my suit, and in the dark, and these dogs are engaging forcefully. They're dragging handlers on lead coming at me. It was beautiful. I was able to suck some handlers into some bad situations because they're relying on the dog to fix it. If you go back and you look at the seminar recap for Dothan, another video that I did February of last year, a very similar situation. Guys relying on their dog to be the tactical solution in this setting, and not just viewing the dog as a locator tool, as a detection tool, and then looking at themselves as being overall responsible for the scene, waiting for their dog to handle the scenario. And that's something that I've talked about. In fact, that video was titled Seminar Recap and Training Scars. And that is a huge training scar of just, I see open door, I send my dog in, I give an announcement, and I send my dog in there, and then I just wait to hear somebody screaming, then I run in there yelling, "Good boy," and I take my dog off, and the day is won. And that's not the case. So trying to do more of that, make handlers understand the real world ramifications, make them use better tactics, make them understand that they are the problem solver, that the dog is just another tool, no different than the expandable baton, no different than the taser or the pepper spray or anything else that they're carrying on them. This is just another tool that has an application. The tool has limits to what it can perform, and you are still the brains behind the operation. And at some point, you have to realize that tool was played and failed, and now I have to move to other tactics to resolve the situation. So, with that being said, getting back on point here, I have up to and including fatalities with dogs in Afghanistan in the theater of war in the middle of the night with zero illumination, grabbing guys, and video of that does exist. It did happen. One dog killing two guys back to back in the dark, and this dog was trained largely on a suit. Other people will say, well, you're just teaching the dog to grab the suit. I can be so natural in a suit, even when there is lighting and the dog can see me. I'm not giving wild presentations. I'm not getting over the top with prey movement or acting hinky or doing any of these silly decoy techniques that you see mostly in protection dog videos on the internet, which until the day I draw my last breath, I will always continue to shit on protection dog trainers. So many of them are absolutely unscrupulous and are selling you a pack of lies. No one acts the way that these bad guys do in these protection dog videos. When you put a dog in a muzzle, you can draw some benefits from the dog being in the muzzle, but they do not outweigh the dog going through the muscle memory of being on nose in subdued lighting without someone having to act hinky or move or do anything to get the dog going because they're in a muzzle and they don't really want to participate in a muzzle most of the time. So with that being said, most of your muzzle scenarios are in situations where there are lighting. Well, when you have situations when there is lighting and the decoy is visible, then our decoy starts doing some really hinky, strange motions. It's a blend between prey and some sport type decoy moves to try to call back to the dog's European import roots so that they can trigger a reaction out of them by mimicking some movements of a sport decoy, but you're in plain clothes to try to get this dog stimulated and going because they're in a muzzle. So even though people tell me, well, I like muzzle work because it's more realistic, I'm in street clothes. You might be in street clothes, but I will bet you $1 to a donut that in order to get most of these dogs going, and maybe even your dogs too, the amount of animation and movement that is not natural and not street moves to get that dog going is going to outweigh the benefit of being in the muzzle. One of the guys that I'm referencing that gives me a lot of input for these videos and asks a lot of questions went on to say, well, the Border Patrol is doing a lot of CQB integrations using a muzzle. If you start in a muzzle doing your CQB integration, you are going to get dependent on that security blanket. You're going to need that whoopee for everyone to feel warm and fuzzy about going in here and free flowing through this target because the dog's in the muzzle and he can't get me. Don't start there. Don't start with your dog in a Hannibal Lecter face covering to make you feel comfortable with this dog going in. Imprint the dog on target discrimination. Let me stop there and ask you this. When we integrate a dog into CQB, we are teaching them target discrimination. The dog needs to know we are not on the menu. We are hunting someone who is. We are not to be bitten, but someone out there is. With that being said, and we go back to talking about scent and imprintation, people who will tell me muzzle is the way to go have also had dogs who on a track may have come across a shed clothing item from the person who was running, and the dog might grab that and tear at it or try to thrash it. Why is that? Because this clothing article is now covered in the scent of their target. they have grabbed this thing because it is full of scent, and now they are taking out that anxious energy on this clothing item. We can take the dog off of that and we can continue to move forward, and we often do. But this is another reason that I don't shed any items when I'm doing my bite work with dogs in a suit. Dog is grabbing me, I am one piece, the suit is all together, it's all one package. So with that being said, even dogs that are muzzle trained will often grab shed clothing items and rip or tear at them, try to tear them up because they're bathed in scent. So with that being said, one of the other items, and it should be a standalone dog talk, and I guess I will honor that idea. But the same person I'm talking about who submitted part of these questions for discussion in the first place was going on to tell me, well, after I go in on a hit, if we do direct action, then my dog is no good for detection after the fact. This is clearly an old law enforcement throwback, a surrender to the idea that my dog can't do this. It's a throwback surrender position to say that a bite trained dog is also understandably animal or dog aggressive. That is nonsense and bullshit, and I've shot that down in other videos. We had to kill this, and we have proven that that's not the case for over 20 years in the global war on terror. If you go on target and you're the only dog, you may legitimately have 3 to 6 minutes in order to play toy with your dog or calm them down and conduct your sensitive site exploitation for you to get back to work with your dog and do some kind of odor-based detection for weapons, ammunition, bomb-making material, or bombs altogether. And when we train our dogs for MPC, I will constantly bring them to a building and tell them, go find a man, and there won't be anything in there but a bomb. Or I will tell them to go into the building on leash and do detection, and I'll go across a closet or a pile of blankets with a decoy in there and have them alert appropriately and get a bite because there's a decoy in there. There is nothing baked into the cake. This is strictly relegated to the law enforcement community anymore. There is no such thing as my dog, once it does patrol, won't do detection. We have proven that to be an absolute myth in the SOF MPC and other related special operations programs. That is not the case, and if you're giving into that, reach out. I'll give you some help. We'll get you straightened out. That is absolutely not something you should put up with. With that being said, welcome back to 2025. I'm glad to get this thing published before the end of January. I'm going to get back into it. I promise I want to put out at least one a month, maybe more frequently than that based on interactions and time. I've got tons of ideas. Hit me up on Instagram, P2TK9. You can send me a message, an idea for a video, ask a training question. Go to my website, p2tk9.com, check out the equipment, make an order if you're so inclined. You can email me there as well. It's P2TK9, but you have to write it out, CANINE, because the restrictions of Gmail, it's got to be of a minimum length. So P2TCANINE.com, or not .com, sorry, at gmail.com. If you want to email me, I will absolutely answer you. Thanks for coming back and watching. Looking forward to 2025.